Welcome back to another episode of Sassy AFTV Live. I'm your host, Hallie Avolio, and I'm so grateful to be here with you the day before Thanksgiving. I'm feeling all the love, all the gratitude, and I'm especially excited to have our guest with us today. I want to read you her bio, and then I'm going to bring her on so you can meet her and know all about her. So my guest today is Lauren Kress, aka the Business Scientist. She provides strategic guidance to entrepreneurs, change makers, and small businesses to grow their brand and business using science. That's pretty sassy as fuck, in my opinion. She is a YouTuber, speaker, and host of one of Australia and New Zealand's leading entrepreneurship podcasts, Grow Your Brand. She is a conversationalist who is passionate about democratizing the art and science of brand building. So this will be a super fun conversation. I'm really excited for you to get to know Lauren. Let me bring her on camera. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Welcome.
It was so nice to hear that intro there, Hallie. I was like, oh, wow, I sound super impressive when you read that out.
You're super impressive. I mean, right off the bat, you're sassy as fuck. Let's just go there. Let's just say it right off the bat. Well, I'm so glad that you're here. And we were just talking about this, that it's pretty much like time, considering you are in Australia right now, and it's already Thursday, and I'm still in Southern California where it's Wednesday. But I love the connections that we're able to make just through the power of the internet. It's amazing.
It is really amazing. And I think I was kind of like, happy Thanksgiving. I'm like, wait, it's not Thanksgiving there yet. We don't really celebrate here, but happy Thanksgiving for tomorrow.
Well, do you have a Thanksgiving holiday that you celebrate in Australia?
No, I just have friends who are, there's a bit of an echo there. Maybe I'll turn down my volume a bit. I'm just getting like a little echo on my audio. I don't know if that's me.
I don't hear anything, but
maybe I'll turn down my mic volume a little bit. Sorry.
That's okay.
So no, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but I have friends over here who are American, so we're celebrating next week on the 3rd of December, because that was the day we're all free, because no one really has a day free for Thanksgiving.
Perfect. Well, one of I love about you, Lauren, you just your own path, create your own way, and do your thing. So that goes right, I think, with that intent, celebrating Thanksgiving in Australia with Americans on December 3rd. Perfect. That's exactly how it should be.
Why not, right?
Exactly. So I want you to share about I want you to introduce yourself. Tell everyone, the Business Scientist, what I can't talk now, what that's all about. But one thing that I'm particularly interested in, Lauren, is what is your big vision? When you're interviewing people, when you're speaking on stages, or maybe right now just via Zoom and YouTube, when you are having a conversation with people, what is the message that you most passionately want to get us and share with the audience that's hearing you in that moment?
That's a really interesting question, and one that I haven't been asked before. I think it's a hard one for me to answer, because I'm the kind of person who's interested in like a lot of things. I find people like endlessly fascinating, and what I love about interviewing is learning about the person. So for me, it's kind of interesting, but I think I naturally gravitate more towards interviewing, facilitating. I do present, but it's more about like, what can we learn from this? What can we learn from this person's experience? What can we learn from this framework? And I guess I don't put too much weight on one thing being more important than the other. What I do think is important is really getting to, like, I'm a scientist, I have a science background, is actually really understanding what's going on, because there's a lot of fluff, there's a lot of nonsense, there's a lot of BS out there. Yes. And I'm like, unfortunately, things that are actually quite important can get mixed up in like sounding like wishy-washy, right? And I'm like, no. So for instance, like mindfulness has science behind it. It's very, very important, but you'll get a bunch of people, intuition's the same. you'll get a bunch of people kind of going, oh no, like, but that's, you know, that's wishy-washy or that's woo-woo. I'm like, no, there's lots of science behind this, but like, let's tell that story. The same with numbers. Numbers tell us really interesting stories, but it can be hard for us to understand what it is if we just talk about it like, you know, without context, without storytelling. So for me, it's like, whatever the information is, it's like, how can I ask the questions, or how can I tell the story that is going to allow the most people to understand it? I think that's something that I'm really passionate about. But it doesn't, it's like one day it could be history and the other day it could be philosophy and then it could be business. And I don't really care too much about the topic, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Right. Well, it's the connection to the topic in that moment and how it resonates with the audience is what I'm hearing you say.
That was a much more eloquent way of putting it, Hallie. Thank you.
I'm just paraphrasing. We've got to make sure that we get the essence of what it means to be a business scientist. But, that drew me to you when I first, learned of you and started watching some of your videos and understanding, what you bring to the table. I've been in business for 20 years, and in many parts of business, my main background is in sales and marketing, but through that, I have witnessed many industries, many types of business. And then when you think about science, you think about, okay, data and analysis, and how do you really get in there and understand what it's about? But it's more than just the analysis, and it's more than just the industry, right? Because like you said, there's a story, there's a brand, and there's this whole concept that you brought up actually on a podcast you shared yesterday with Nate Peo, which I really loved. So I wanted to pick your brain on this a bit. The concept of being a thought leader. And I know you were referencing somebody else that you interviewed recently, but the difference between a thought leader and a personal brand. And I loved the way that you were assessing this. So I'd be curious if you could share a little bit with this audience, what does that mean to you to be a thought leader in business today? And how does it differ from a personal brand?
Yeah, so definitely need to give credit to the person who spoke to me about this, who is a thought leadership expert, Bill Sherman. He's over in the States as well. And I love the way he put this, and I really agree with it, is this: when you're talking about thought leadership, you're talking about sort of being the facilitator of an idea. So you're kind of like growing an idea through the power of your words and the story that you're telling, your charisma, your presentation, influence, all those kinds of things. But it's like the idea is kind of, bigger than you in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it ties in with things like when we talk about legacy, when we talk about the mark we want to make on the world, when we think about, like TED Talks, for instance, this
Right.
like ideas worth spreading, a thought leader is someone who's like, I want to go and share this idea. And it's not necessarily about building my business. It's not necessarily about, achieving a certain objective just for me. It's sort of like this idea is bigger than me. Though some of that's my words. So this is like, I've stolen some of it from Bill and then I've added my own little flavoring on top.
But that's the science part, right?
You got to mix things up. So,
Right.
With personal branding, personal brand is hugely important as well. And I don't think either is better or worse or anything. But with personal branding, we've got to be really clear about our objectives. Like, okay, why are you building a personal brand? What is this for? This is about your reputation as a person. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people think, oh, I have to be in business to have a personal brand. And that's what Nate and I were talking about yesterday as well. It's like, right. No, everyone has a personal brand because everyone has a reputation. If we use the word reputation instead, like everyone knows they have one. You go,
right.
Oh,
that's a good point. Right.
Of course I have a reputation. It doesn't matter where I am. When we say personal brand, I think people start to go, oh, that means I got to be on social media all the time. And like, what do I say? And but it's like, no, that's amplifying your personal brand. You still have one. How are you going to look after it? How are you going to use it to do the things that you want to do in life? So yeah, that's kind of, I agree with Bill Sherman, and I really appreciate that we had that conversation, because I think that clarifying that is worthwhile. Yeah,
absolutely. And the other part to me that kind of is the next part of that is, where do we align? Where do we draw between who we are as a person, how we show up on social media if we choose to do so, how do we show up in our business? Whether we're a business owner, a thought leader, an employee, whatever the case is. I think that there's so much overlap nowadays, way more so, than there used to be. For example, when I first got into business, there was no there was no mention, first of all, of a personal brand. That wasn't a buzzword, so to speak. And you didn't really share personal stories. That wasn't really, how you, even though that's how when you got to know people, it came up, but it wasn't something as prevalent, I believe, as it is now. But in my opinion, that actually makes the connections that much stronger and makes business that much more enjoyable and fun. And I know that's a big part of what you are teaching people, is to bring more fun and authenticity into their experience.
Yeah, so I think look, there's more than one answer to this question, right? Because for some people, it's like it kind of starts with like, what are your objectives of building your personal brand? So like, what are you trying to achieve? And I think what happens, and Hallie, you probably are more qualified than me in answering part of this question, because part of this is like, I really think you have to design your life first before you build your personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
And look, you can always change. You can always change. It just gets a little bit harder. So if you're kind of like, I want to go and do this, and you work really solidly on, let's say, for instance, I'm going to build my personal brand as a elite athlete, right?
Mm-hmm.
And associated with being an elite athlete and speaking from that kind of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, okay, now I want to go into something completely different. It's like people have perceived you one way and they've got you in that box now. Sort of like, how actors can get typecast as well. Like, oh, we've only seen this actor in these kinds of roles. I can't imagine them in this. And that can be hard for them. You can do it. You can absolutely do it. So I don't want people to think, oh no, I think I built my personal brand one way and now I want to change my mind. Yes, you can always change your mind.
Right.
But if you do that work first, and I encourage my clients to do this, if you do the work first of going, what do I want my life to look like? What am I building? What am I, what is the legacy I want to leave behind? What is the mark I want to make on the world? Yes, that could change. But at least we've got some sort of direction and clarity to then go, okay, now how do we tell a story around that? How do we, define the contribution you want to make to the world? And then what does that look like for you? I think that one of the challenges that we have is something actually I've been thinking about a lot personally for myself, is like, when are things personal and when are they professional? And
Mm-hmm.
how much of that, do you want to share? So for instance, for me on Facebook, I recently came out as bisexual. But
Okay.
on LinkedIn, I was like, is that appropriate? Should I be putting that out on LinkedIn? Because like, is it really relevant? Does it really matter? I'm like, but it's obviously important enough for me to like tell that story and share that story.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is to that yet. I'm trying to figure that out. But I think that we need to ask ourselves those questions, and we need to think about how is this going to help? How is this going to serve? What is the purpose of doing this?
Right.
And I think it's tricky. I think it's hard.
I do too. Well, and I'm curious, what was the motivation for you in sharing that on Facebook?
So I think the big thing was I realized the mental health like impact that. So because there's a lot of mental health issues in like the LGBTQIA kind of sphere, right?
Right.
But there's a massive issue, like, and it's kind of hidden with people who are bisexual. And I was like, these are the things that I went through mental health wise. These were the challenges I had. This was my background. This is what I really struggled with. And for me, telling that story allowed me to kind of reframe it and also shine a light on the fact that I'm like, a lot of people didn't even know this about me, but I'm still the same person.
Right.
And there's a lot of other people out there who are going through these things silently because maybe they don't feel like they can say anything, or maybe they don't feel like they're, part of this community, or they don't have the right to kind of access certain things. So for me, it was kind of like a purpose-driven post. And I was like, I want people in my family, like my family and friends, to know this. But I'm like, well, it's also something I want to advocate for. So should I be sharing that on LinkedIn? And like, the reason I'm bringing that up is I'm like, I don't know the answer,
Right.
I don't know the answer.
but I love this. I think this is fascinating because first of all, I think that it's beautiful that you're transparent about it because you are a whole person, and as a whole person, and everybody is whole, we're complex. There's lots of parts of us. Yes, you're a business scientist. Yes, you help people with branding. Yes, you're a YouTuber, a podcaster, but you're also a woman and you have, all of your needs, including sexual needs and relationship needs and intimacy needs, right? And there's many components to you, and I'm sure you've had many types of relationships of all sorts throughout time, platonic, intimate, as we all have. And not one situation defines you, but it's part of who you are as a whole person. And for me, I really love that the veil has been lifted a bit. And I think that it's really beautiful when we can share these parts of ourselves that, like you said, it creates connection with people. And by you sharing your story, I know that it's touching at least one person, if not, and I'm sure many people, in a way that they now feel comfortable to share their own power, to really feel empowered. If Lauren can say this more the norm, then it's not so out of the norm for me to also seek help, seek support in my community, just truly be who I am. So I don't know what the right answer is either, but truly I believe in the power of humanity and just connecting as our truest self. So I love that. I love it so much.
Oh, thanks. And you know what, Hallie, like I did get really like interesting comments and messages from doing that. Like, and my Facebook network is much, much smaller than my LinkedIn network, right? But people either said like, yeah, solidarity, I've actually just been struggling with the same thing.
Yeah.
I had people going like, hey, like, do you want to chat about this? People who are like, yeah, I've kind of been thinking about this myself and I kind of don't know where I am. Can we have a chat? So it was like, in a really like small network, I could see that. And it's like, this isn't just about like being bisexual. It's not just about being a business owner. It's not just about, I think the thing is, it's more like what you said. It's like, hey, like this is something this is my journey. This is what I've been through. Maybe you're like this as well. Maybe this is something that speaks to you. And like, we didn't know this about each other. And now we have this deeper connection.
Right.
And I think that when we talk about personal branding, a lot of the time we can get stuck in the same way that we get stuck with our work roles. We go, I need to put on this hat. I need to be this certain person because I'm being my professional self now. And that means like I'm actually wearing a mask. And I'm like, I believe that when we're ready, it's important to take the mask off. I'm not saying to everyone, like, go out and start sharing all your deepest, darkest secrets with everyone. But for me, like, I thought about this for a very, very long time. And there was something that, like, I had listened to a podcast and I was like, I really want to make a statement about this. This is concerning me and I want to shine a light on this. But I haven't, I mean, this is the first time I've talked about it on LinkedIn. So there you go.
Well, I'm honored because I think that I love it. I think this is like what I want to get at. This is, to me, this is the essence of what I want to bring to the table, is having the conversations that we're not sure about, that we're like, we kind of shake our head a little bit and think and like, to me, that's really what being a thought leader is asking the questions that allow others to think instead of just having these canned responses or conversations that we're supposed to have, right? I mean, for me, I like to push the envelope a little bit, which is why I feel so strongly and passionately about, people showing up as their true selves and being comfortable and feeling that they're in a safe space to do so. Because I feel like when we create that opportunity for that safe space, then we can be our whole self. And there's so much that comes out of that. Like, I bet, I can imagine that once you kind of released that story, it was a bit of a weight maybe off your shoulders, or just some more of a like a breath of fresh air or something. I don't know if that resonates, but
totally. It's like, I've just been listening to a couple of podcasts about Gestalt therapy, and this idea of like closing the circle, and we use this in business as well, right? Like, if you start a task and you don't complete the task, you kind of feel like, I need to scratch that itch. Like, I need to finish that thing. And that's what it was for me, doing this one post. And it, like, from an outsider might be like, okay, big deal and whatever. But
Right.
it's like, for me, I'm like, no, it was like a part of a story I needed
Yeah.
to kind of like close, and, does that go into thought leadership and personal branding? Yeah, I think it does, because like when we start to see that someone else is a human, and like what you said before was so beautiful, Hallie, about like when we're in conversation, we have this opportunity to ask questions, and we can be in conversation with people on the other side of the world. It doesn't even need to be talking, right? Like for people who are a bit more introverted and like, I don't want to do a live stream, like that's okay. It can be like adding a comment to someone's post, or it can be starting the conversation. Like some of the best posts are where you start a conversation, you don't
Yes.
actually answer it, right? Have you found that as well?
Oh yeah, I love that. I mean, I do a lot of a Facebook group, and I'll have to invite you to it so you can check it out. But I post questions daily. I often don't answer them. And sometimes somebody will chime in and be like, well, Hallie, what do you think about this? And I do like to offer my opinion, but I feel like I'm often the one talking, and I want to create a space for others to start thinking and then share what's on their heart. Because sometimes you just need somebody to ask the question to lead you down the path of like, huh, I never really thought about it that way. Or you see somebody else's comment and it sparks a new thought. And so to me, that's really how we exist strongly as humans and how we engage with one another. And in 2020, when, good Lord, this world has just been shaken up in so many ways that none of us were prepared for, really, I feel like connection to humanity is one of the most important things that we have right now. We need that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I think the big thing is that I mean, this has been really, really hard and really, really horrible, but one of the silver linings, I think, is that um, people have found new ways to reach out to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I've connected with people who I had lost connection with because we were far away. And then it was
Mm.
suddenly like, well, everyone's kind of far away,
Right.
So
Yeah. Even your neighbor down the street. It's like, well, you can't really see in person. So yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I'm curious about, Lauren, I see you all over the place. You are doing so many wonderful things. You're so active. I want to get in a little bit behind the scenes and know, how do you take care of yourself? What does your self-care look like? And how do you recharge so that you have this vibrant energy that you're always bringing to the table?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question. I mean, until recently, I wasn't looking after myself, to be honest, Hallie. Like,
Okay.
I quit smoking 2 months ago for good. First time I quit for good, like 50th time I tried to quit.
Okay.
I
Good. I'll hold you to that.
It's been so, I mean, I can't go back now. I mean, I start every day by going for a swim, which I've always done. Like, I'm a beach girl. I know you're a beach girl too.
Yep.
And like, just that morning routine of getting in the water and going for a swim, that's hugely important. I think the big thing is, starting the day with something for me, like that.
Mm-hmm.
No one else is here. I'm starting the day for me. And I recently, like, in terms of my diet, I changed my diet up a lot. I cut out like eating a lot of meat and just kind of being more like pescatarian kind of diet. And that's been really great. But I think like the big thing with all of that is that they're kind of like the symptoms of like a deeper realization, which was, I'm important and I need to start looking after myself. And it took me a long time to get there. And it sounds so silly. Like, I say to you, I'm important. You're like, yeah, of course you're important. You're a human being. Of course you're important. We're all worth the same. We're all humans. But for some reason, for me, it took me a long time to realize that. So I think having that core belief means that all those things like the diet and the good habits and the all that kind of stuff is like a result of changing that core belief. And then, yeah, I mean, like, I just don't, like, I don't do things that I don't want to do. That's the other big thing.
That's huge. Oh my God. How many times have I done stuff in my life that I didn't want to do, but I did it because I thought someone else thought I should do it? I mean, that's like a
Yeah.
crazy way to live. So I'm glad you're not doing things that you don't want to do.
It's just like, but we do, right? Like how many of us are conditioned to think like, I've got to go and study, I've got to go and work, then I've got to go get married, I've got to have kids, I've got to get a house, right? Yeah.
This girl, yeah. I was
We're
like, check,
totally
check,
that.
check. Right.
And I mean, to bring it back to storytelling, Hallie, as well, like the stories have power. One of my friends said to me the other day, he's like, words are a drug because they
Ooh,
have an effect on our chemistry in our brain. They have an effect on the way we think about things, you
right.
know, and the words that we tell people, especially when they're young, the stories that we tell people have a massive effect. And it's kind of like we've got to undo a lot of that storytelling, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and self-talk, and I know there's a lot of science behind this, right? And neuroplasticity and how our brains work and how we process information, and positive self-talk, negative self-talk, using affirmations, using, positive journaling, gratitude, all of these things that have such a strong basis in our own mental wellness. And
Mm.
yet, and they're so simple, and yet it's so hard for us sometimes to wrap our brains around that and implement them, right? Like you said, yes, every human is worthy, right? And I can say, great job. I'm so glad that you are valuing yourself. But actually, what I want to celebrate is that you, Lauren, are aware that you should be celebrating yourself, because
Yeah.
it's that self-awareness piece. That's the bigger issue, right? It's like once you have that self-awareness, then you realize, oh, my words do matter. Oh, the
Yeah.
words I use to other people, they do matter. And how
Mm.
it all comes back.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
And it's like also, Hallie, like I just said before, like I didn't say, I don't usually talk about this, but I'm like, yeah, I was a smoker. Now, it's not that I didn't know smoking was bad. It's not like, oh, let me show you some more statistics, Lauren, on
Right.
why smoking is bad and it will convince you to stop. No, it's not. And this is the thing that even though I've done the science, I've also done a master's in art and design, because I'm like, the science is important, but unless we actually get the insight from it and we understand, like, this isn't about telling someone the facts and expecting them to change. This
Right.
isn't about, because a lot of what we do in business, in our work, wherever we are, whatever we're doing, we're dealing with people. And if we don't understand that, like, changing behavior isn't just about putting facts in front of people, then we're kind of missing a trick, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And to kind of like bring it all full circle, I asked you in the beginning, what is your big mission? What is the thing that you want people to remember you for? And you talked about learning from others and storytelling, and why it's so interesting to understand other people's stories and how they all connect, so that you can understand humans in a bigger picture. But it comes back to the feelings, right? And that's why storytelling is so powerful, because you get to the heart of, how do you feel? It's not
Yeah.
what are the statistics around smoking or, being bisexual. It's around, how do you feel by expressing who you are as a person? And when you can connect to somebody else and elicit those feelings and make that strong connection, that's where I think that the power comes in, and the bonding.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
So cool. All right. Well, I have some quick fire questions for you. If you're ready for my rapid fire, here we go.
Yeah.
So first question, do you have a favorite author? And if so, what is the book that you love the most?
Yes, Brene Brown. And I
Oh,
think
yay.
probably Braving the Wilderness, I think, was my favorite, which might not surprise you.
Oh, I love Brene Brown. I was just talking about her recently, and she is just one of my favorites. She's so real. And I love that, like,
Yeah.
on her TED Talk, she says shit. That just every time it just gets me like, love her. Love her. Um, okay, so aside from Brene Brown, although you can say her again, who is someone you truly admire?
Oh, there's a lot of people I admire. Brene Brown definitely has to be up there. Another person is actually, he's anonymous. He's called Blind Boy. He's from Ireland, and he's a podcaster. Have
Okay.
massive respect for him as well. Probably lesser known, but yeah, they would be the two.
Okay, cool. I don't know that one. I'll have to check him out. If you could meet one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Oh, have so many. I have so many. I'd probably want to meet like someone in like who is in my like, you know, one of my ancestors that like I don't know. So like I wouldn't know who they are, but if I could be like, I want to meet someone who like from 500 years ago who
In your
actually
family line?
yeah, that I'm alive. I think that would be pretty cool. I think
That would be pretty cool, right? To be able to go back in time and see like where your family started and what the history was like.
yeah, yeah.
Where is your dream vacation?
Well, one would have to be like Santorini, Greece, which I've been to Santorini before, but I love it. It's so beautiful. The other one is skiing in Japan. I don't really mind where, just anywhere in Japan.
Mm.
I'm a massive skier, so yeah, those two. I'm gonna
Have you
keep giving
been?
you two answers. Sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. You can give me as many as you want. Have you skied in Japan before?
No, I've skied in Canada, and I've skied obviously here, but that doesn't really count. But Japan's kind of that will
Yeah.
be probably the first place we go after, you know, once we can travel again. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I actually hate the cold and I'm like very fearful of chairlifts. I have a really nonsensical fear of falling off a chairlift. I did not grow up skiing. I think the first time that I went to the snow, I was like 14 and
Okay.
I got on the chairlift and I have this like very big fear of heights. And it was just like the whole thing with like the skis, like kind of like weighing you forward. And I don't know, this summer we went to the mountains in Southern California and we could take the chairlift up to the top just for like looking around. And it was just beautiful and people were mountain biking. I was scared as shit going up there with my kids, like, don't go forward. I mean, it was ridiculous. So
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those things that like like I started when I was really young and you just kind of get used to it, but yeah, it's growing up with this probably makes it a bit easier, I think.
totally. My husband liked to ski growing up, and so he enjoys it. And my kids are like dying to go to the snow, and I'm like, I'm good right here down at sea level by the beach. I'm good. I'm good. But I bet skiing in Japan would be fascinating. So I hope you get there and you can send lots of videos and I'll watch you from afar. I'll watch you ski down the slopes from afar. And my last question, Lauren, is what makes you sassy as fuck?
Well, it's kind of the theme that we've been chatting about today, isn't it? It's like I don't really give a fuck about the rules. Like I really don't. And you know, like I was homeschooled, and I know, sorry, this is a long-winded answer, but like I was homeschooled. I kind of grew up kind of being like a bit of an outsider and going to high school and being like, why does everyone behave like this? So I think it's just kind of like I don't really care what other people think my life should be like. I kind of care more about what I think my life should be like.
I love that answer. And you know what? I'm homeschooling my kids right now because of COVID. And we had thought about it for a while, but never did it until we were forced to. And it's been a really positive experience for them. And for all the reasons that you just said, and I will tell you that I am still recovering from all the pressure of the shoulds and not fitting in and caring too much about what other people thought. And I'm sure a big part of that came from my, public schooling experience and ridicule and all just kind of the normal social things that happen when you're in that sort of a situation. And I feel very grateful that my kids are just in a completely different place. So hearing from someone like you on the other side of it, I'm like, maybe we need to stick with this homeschool business. Maybe it's not so bad after all.
I think a bit of school is good, but definitely in those early years, I'm really grateful that my parents thought of doing that. I think it paid off for me.
Well, absolutely. And I think that your attitude and your practice of doing things the way that you want and not worrying about what, the rules are and the shoulds, I think that that's really inspiring and motivating.
Oh, thanks, Holly. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I want you to share with everybody how they can connect with you if they want to get to know you better. I'll put up your LinkedIn here. But yeah, tell us a little bit about what's going on with you and where we can find you.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. Let me know, like anyone who's listening or watching this later, watching this later, let me know that you heard about me on Sassy AF TV. Let me know that you're connected with Hallie as well, because I love that. I love hearing about how people found out about me and what they're interested in. But LinkedIn is the best place. You can also go to my website, laurenkress.com. I've got like a bunch of free resources to help you grow your brand and grow your business, podcasts, all that kind of stuff. But if you want to have a chat, LinkedIn is the place to catch me. I spend a lot of time on here.
Awesome. Well, it's great. And you just bring such a light and positive energy and fun. You're fun, and the way that you explain stuff, and I love how you do, a combination of interviews and motivation, and, you just kind of break it down and give it to us straight how it should be, Lauren Kress style. So no holding back. I love it.
Thanks, Sally. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, before we wrap, I have a special surprise for you. I don't know if you've seen me do this before, but I have a Sassy AF affirmation card deck, so I want to pull a card for you.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so let's see what your card is. All right, I'm going to just shuffle them on my desk here, so tell me when to stop, and I'm just going to pull the first one.
Okay.
Tell me when.
All right. When?
Okay, here it is. There we go. Sweet thing, you are full of love and positivity.
Love it.
I love it. That's a good one. Beautiful. I'll send that one over to you. Well, thank you, Lauren, for being on Sassy AF TV. It's always fun to get to connect with you, and I just appreciate your candor, your energy, your being so open and sharing, and just being the light that you are, because you add so much value, and I think that you have a beautiful story to share, and I'm just grateful that we've been able to connect across the world and get to share with each other.
Oh, thanks so much. This has been so much fun. I've really enjoyed this interview. It's been great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you did catch the beginning, make sure to come back. Also, check out the Sassy AF audio experience on iTunes and Spotify. I did just release a special gratitude Thanksgiving episode. It's a short one, so if you've got 10 minutes, give it a listen. We'll see you next week with another episode, another interview here on Sassy AF TV Live. Thank you so much. Bye.